Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the REMAX Real Estate Strategies podcast. I'm Jessica Ragimov, one of your hosts here, and also the Director of Communication and Brand Marketing at REMAX Hallmark. Today, I am joined by the lovely Jeannie Laverock, one of our agents out in our Bayview Village office. I've known her for a few years now. And Jeannie has a very interesting story that she's shared with me multiple times, but I think it would be interesting to have her share her story. She actually got the Rising Star Award in her first year here with us at REMAX Hallmark. And after that, actually her business continued to grow. In 2024, she received the Platinum Club Award. So there is no surprise that she's doing something right in her business. So Jeannie, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to have our guests learn a little bit about what is your secret sauce and what helps you to be so successful in your line of work.
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I don't think there's any secret sauce. I think it's just a lot of, some people may say obsessive, but it is a lot of work and a positive attitude. And as you said, it's years of experience. I've been in sales pretty much my whole life, but being in real estate is a whole different can of worms. I'm not going to lie.
So I know you joined us at REMAX Hallmark. I believe it was December 2022.
It was.
So right before 2023. Were we your first brokerage that you joined?
Yes, I was. I
Okay.
actually received my license in December, and I know you know this story in Jonder, but I had actually been with REMAX Elite in 1986 to 89 when the boom was going on. It was wild. We went from, I think, 40 agents to 400. And actually, what's incredible, the reason I came back to Bayview was because a lot of my friends from the REMAX Elite days had been joined by Hallmark, and they're still actually active agents. So it was really very a comfort zone thing, but also when I came in, I had interviewed a couple of brokerages and just didn't feel comfortable. And as soon as I walked in the door, I was like, I'm home. I knew where I wanted to be. And the training was just incredible, which I dove right into, as you know.
Full circle moment. So Jeannie just like glossed over that, but you guys may not know this. She was actually, yes, part of the REMAX network many years ago. Jeannie, what were you doing at REMAX?
Well, in 86, I started, I was actually on the phones. And it was so wildly busy when I was promoted off the phones. They actually replaced me with two receptionists. It was so crazy. But we went upstairs to the deals department. I also did accounting, and I was very much customer service with our agents. It was a wild time, and it was a very busy, and we had to work many late nights typing offers. And back then you had to type everything perfectly. There was no whiteout allowed. You weren't allowed to fax things. So it had to be perfect. We had to be excellent typists.
So when you say you were on the phones, that's how someone would, for example, if they walked into the office, they would see someone at the front desk, for example, in one of our offices, right?
Yes.
Whereas obviously your roles and responsibilities have changed, but I mean, if the phones were ringing that much that they had to replace you with not
It
only
was
one person,
wild.
but two, I can only imagine how busy that must have been. So it really is like a full circle moment for you.
It is.
I personally think that the real estate agents, brokers, professionals that do the best in this business are those that have had experience in the other parts of what the actual business entails. And I use the word business intentionally because, yes, you are a real estate professional, but you are running a business, right? So, in having experience picking up the phone, knowing how to have a conversation, how to draft an offer, although I'm sure the offers look very different than they did before, moving into more customer service related roles, I think those things lend itself to really your success as now a business owner and in continuing to work with your clients, right? So tell us about after 86 and you moved into those roles, what did you get into afterwards? Because I think it's no surprise that whatever skills you've been able to develop in your past, work experience, that you've actually been able to bring those skills into what you're doing right now. So talk to us a little bit more about what you were doing before.
Well, actually, I'm going to actually fast forward to before REMAX Elite. I don't know if you are aware, but my dad sold real estate since the 70s. And I used to help him do his tear sheets, pull them apart as a kid, and go to open houses. So I'm not a newbie to real estate. Growing up as in high school, I actually worked for Family Trust Realty, not his company. He was at Century 21. But I worked at many different real estate offices as a kid, and that's why I transitioned when I moved to Toronto. We were up at Lake Simcoe. When I moved to Toronto, I got a job at REMAX Hallmark. So I was there for 4 years. I had actually been approached by an agent to shadow her and get my license, and I was considering it, of course. And as you look back at history, 89, the market started to go, whoo. But at that point in time, it hadn't done that quite yet. But I was headhunted by McLean Hunter to sell for a real estate magazine who was in the same building as us. So it was 100% sales. And I was like, I think I can do this. I was 22 years old and full of, I can do anything. And so I was headhunted and of course started there in 89. And of course, what happened? The market completely tanked. And I was this kid starting and I just dove right in and I ended up being the top salesperson for 10 years. But it was, it's like how I think is how I always approach everything. Just dive in, learn as much as you can and have fun. And also always think about what the customer needs. And that sort of translated to all of my businesses. And when I was there, I actually had a printing company that was in my basement since 1986. And I actually used to print all the REMAX brochures and flyers. I was a REMAX approved printer. So every day when I'd come into the office, I would bring my printing in. I was covered in 185 red and reflex blue was the colors back then, the corporate colors. And I would come in with ink on me and I would bring the printing in. And so I've always been an entrepreneur and had little businesses. And in 1998, I had my daughter, Lauren, who's now getting her real estate license and she's almost done, which cannot wait for. But it was very difficult, being 100%. I was running the printing company and working at McLean Hunter. We had been bought by Rogers at this point. So it was a really great place to work. Actually, our boss at the time was John Tory. He was quite a character, but, it was just getting to be too much and I wanted to spend time with Lauren. So I decided to take the printing company full time. And I was doing that up until COVID.
Okay. And then afterwards you jumped into real estate. So speaking of printing, I can't help but to think about your car that you've wrapped. And the reason why I bring this up is
the Jeannie Mobile.
I think you've been able to have a very unique way in which you generate business and in the way that you service your clients. I know about, the time spent with them and all that kind of stuff. So I'm curious to know, your first year, you had a very successful year, right? What was it for you? What do you think it was that really allowed you to have a very successful year in that first year that you jumped into this? Because a lot of people struggle. Sometimes it takes about 6 months for an agent to get their first deal. So were you already kind of nurturing people before you jumped in? Did people know you were getting into the business? I'm so curious to know, what did your first 6 months and then the remaining 6 months look like?
Well, when I first started, as you know, when I lost basically a printing company, the only reason I came to real estate was the printing company. Everything shut down and we did all retail. I did movie posters and shoe flyers, everything that was retail. So I decided that very quick, we had 4 kids and I said, what am I going to do? So I decided to dive in and get my real estate license, but I didn't tell anyone, Jessica. I told no one. I kept my cards super tight because I was very nervous. I was mid 50s. I didn't want to fail because I'm not good at failing. And, I might have some issues. And so I sort of said, what am I going to do to help my family? And I think it's been the greatest lesson to teach my kids that if you get knocked down, you can pick yourself up and you can start over. And I had to do that numerous times in my life, but doing it midlife was a little more stressful, I think. And I didn't want to share it with anybody until I was up and ready. Actually, in terms of talking, I didn't actually tell anyone. So when I got my license, I actually hadn't even told all my real estate friends. I didn't tell them until I had the license and they're like, you need to come here. And I was like, I was really nervous, to not do well. So I was given my first opportunity actually in January, which is amazing, of 2023. And it was a lady we knew who she taught all 4 of our kids. I didn't know her too well, but she knew me from the school. And actually, it's funny because you talk about branding. She said she saw my hot pink jacket, which was a complete accident because I don't usually wear pink. And now everything I have is pink and even my signs, everything. And of course, my car is, as you know, but she saw the pink coat and said, I know Jeannie and I think she could really help me. And I went in and we really did a spectacular job. And, we have so many It wasn't just that we were nurturing people. I hadn't actually told anybody, but really it was just when we were given the opportunity, I said, what am I going to do with this opportunity? I need to really succeed and be extremely successful because I'm in a community that's very tight knit and there's a lot of extremely good agents and very successful agents. And I actually figured that I wouldn't even be selling so much in this neighborhood. I actually thought that I would be selling more, maybe cottage country, because I came from the country. So I thought maybe that's where I'd be selling more. And it's amazing how we've done 22 houses pretty much in this neighborhood in Scarborough this year. So
I was about to ask, where's the neighborhood? So
we are actually lakeside. It's West Rouge and Centennial. So it's Scarborough, but we're on the border of Pickering. But It's lakeside community. It's really beautiful here.
Okay, very nice. So, I mean, you talked about knowing the importance of being very successful when given an opportunity. And successful to a client could mean they sold my house at an incredible price. To another client, it could be they serviced me really well. And that's kind of where I want to take this. So, I mean, when you were given that opportunity, and even now as you're working with your clients, what are some of the things that you do that create that like aha for your clients as you work with them? And I'm thinking in terms of service, right?
Absolutely.
Like, what does that process look like?
Well, for us, it's actually been full service since day one. And what I mean by that, I mean, everybody uses that as a buzzword, but what I mean by it really is full service. And we're accessible. I think the biggest thing is being accessible. Making sure the clients feel comfortable. I think that's, in terms of how we handle it, we do everything. My husband, as you know, has been a painter he owns Big Time Pro Painting, was on the Homes on Home show. He's very talented. So I'm very lucky. He's sort of my ace in the hole, actually. He's actually the meme the guy that didn't apply for the job that has to do everything. Yeah. So I feel very sorry for him. Sorry, Jeff. He is my savior though for everything. And now the kids are actually three of the four kids are now working with us. Lauren got her staging license and Ryan does the electrical, but he's staging with us and painting. And Grace just graduated film school, so she's helping as well. So it's actually come full circle. But when we first started, what it looks like to a client is we come in and we say, what are the problems with the house? What do we feel it's going to take to get it to the best amount of dollars? And also to make sure that the clients are really comfortable. And I think that's all they want at least the experiences we've had this year. Clients want to, especially because there's so much negativity out there like on the TV, everywhere you go, even other agents, negative. I try to I never give unrealistic expectations. I think managing expectations is very important as well. But I try to always make sure they feel comfortable. They can ask questions. I try to walk them through everything. I think education is really key. When I was selling advertising, I tried to educate my clients as well, make sure they were really educated so that when we make decisions, it's a little bit easier if we have to pivot or whatever the case may be. But right. Full circle, we come in, we paint, we stage, and we market the heck, because I have a marketing background. So we market the heck out of the property. And I think that's really the key. And also to make sure that they are comfortable during the whole process. And if we get over asking, which most of the houses we have this year, we've been very lucky. Again, but that's been positioning and marketing. And, we've been very lucky and our clients are very happy, which is half the battle.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And then they refer you, right? So that's the other side of it.
Right. So have you focused on a specific demographic, or is it a specific, I know you mentioned your community, but what does that look like for you? I'm sure that looked differently in your first year than it did or than it does now.
Well, it's interesting because I had thought maybe I'd be focusing because of my age with more downsizers. But actually it's been interesting because I've actually been working with all sorts of different buyers, first time home buyers, downsizers, upsizers. It's actually been a wonderful journey, even finding investment properties, cottages, and it's sort of been a mix of all sorts of different things. It started off, my goal was to focus on downsizers, but it sort of has expanded, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes you end up getting a house because you've sold another house and you did a good job and they've recommended you or they saw what job you did. And we've just tried to keep that momentum going.
Mm-hmm. So in your first year, I'm going to bring it back to this because
yes.
I mean, I talked about, being the rising star in the first year. And we have such a big network of agents. We've got about 2,000 agents. So to be able to get that award, I think, it says something. So what was it in your first year? How were you? I mean, you obviously have sales experience. I don't know if you've ever taken courses, to learn how to be in sales, but what were you doing like in the first little while? Were you joining certain communities? Like where were your clients coming from?
So when I first started, actually, one of the reasons I chose Hallmark was that beautiful calendar that you guys have that you can go in and click. I want to learn about this. You're going to laugh because I'd never even done a Zoom. So ever. So one of the first things I had to learn was how to do a Zoom, but I'm very much about learning. I'm very much about education. I grew up the oldest of five. We didn't have a lot. So being the only girl and the oldest, I've been working since I was very young. But I do believe very much in education and learning. And I love to learn. So one of the things when I joined REMAX Hallmark, the Humber course doesn't touch on probably 90% of the things that you actually need to be learning. So not that it isn't a good course, but when you get into the business, I really, really gravitated towards the technology because I thought this is what's going to help me. So I jumped in and then tried to incorporate it with my sales skills and how to get clients. I think really once you do a good job for someone, I'm all about marketing and advertising. And you mentioned the Jeannie Mobile, my big Suburban. I have 4 children. So I had this giant truck and I actually was going to trade it in because it probably would have been better on gas, but I decided there was no billboards in the neighborhood. So I said, I'm beside 2 schools. And I thought, how do I make an impact very quickly? So I wrapped it, with the big pink jacket and the branding and drive around and it really has made an impact. And it's actually, I've been part of community events where, people have had to take pictures beside it and give their best Jeannie pose. And it's become like a conversation and people send me pictures now. Hey, I'm out with Jeannie at the, and sending pictures and things, but it's all part of that building a brand. I also advertise in the local newspaper. I'm involved in community events. You asked me what groups I joined. There's a local incredible group that many of our Hallmarkers belong to. And it's the Scarborough Breakfast Club. And every Wednesday we meet and we share each other's listings. We do a Zoom and then we do a Brokers Open tour every Wednesday. And so that's really helped me find properties for my clients. But it's also been able to help me market my properties that I have for sale to potential agents and buyers. And also their marketing and advertising as well. They'll post out my property when they're doing the tour as well every Wednesday, which has been absolutely fantastic because it's also all the local agents. So I was able to dive into this area very quickly by sort of networking as well.
Okay, so you did a lot of networking then in that first year.
Yeah.
Did you do any of the door knocking, cold calling? I know marketing was big. So when you say marketing, what were you doing in that first year in marketing?
Every time I got a listing, I went really big. So I could share some of the things that I did. But for example, I had a house that had a pool and it was gorgeous. Actually, it was second year, but I did it in the first year as well. And because of my printing background and advertising background, I made giant custom step stakes for the open house featuring the pool and QR. We've been using QR codes in the printing industry for 20 years. So I used a QR code so people could see the tour of the house. I hired the best photographers, the best videographers. I'm not afraid to open my wallet. And even though I just started, I knew it was really important to make sure that the property looked the best that it could. And right. I'm really a big believer. You talk about door knocking. I did do a little bit of door knocking, but mostly I met people through open houses. And the open houses have been the most successful for us in terms of meeting people. I remember Peggy Hill said something that really stuck with me at the women's network that you put together. Yep. And I was so touched by her because I thought, exactly sort of my scenario. I used to do trade shows for 10 years and I was the trade show queen. I'd walk in and it was like going to a party. You go meet people and hang around and talk, but it was comfortable for me. Open houses are very similar for me. I always make, coffee or food and to make it sort of inviting so that I can get people in talking to them and to find out what their needs are. And I've actually gotten a lot of buyers through open houses and other sales as well. So open houses have been the biggest for our business. And we really build on those.
That's amazing. So are you guys still doing open houses? I mean, you did that when you started.
I'm doing 4 this weekend. How's that?
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that look like? How are you managing your time if you're doing 4 open houses?
It's not
what
easy.
are the times?
So sometimes I'll do 1 to 3 or 11 to 1. But this weekend, actually, I've asked another Hallmark agent to help me do the 2 to 4 because these houses are actually almost 2 streets away from each other and they're both townhouses. So we're going to, normally I would do my own open houses, one earlier, one later, back to back, and do all the marketing around that. But because these are so similar properties, I've hired one of our wonderful REMAX agents here in the Pickering office to come and help me. And we're going to tag team. So we're going to have treats at both. And we're going to say, go. And I do it actually with some of the other local realtors in this area as well. They might not be hallmarkers, but if they have a house that we can tag team open houses, it's really important because we all have to help each other, So that's what we've been doing in this neighborhood. And that's what I'm doing this weekend. So we're doing back-to-back open houses. And if somebody goes there, we'll send them to this one and they can walk. So it should prove interesting. Yeah.
I love that. So open houses, one.
Yes.
You said, obviously, you really leaned on marketing in that first year of your business. And when you say marketing, at least from what I took away from what you said is, we can all say we market, but what does that look like, right? So going the extra mile in order to showcase maybe a unique feature or a unique property, whatever that takes. And there was one more thing that you mentioned aside from that. I got so invested in the open houses, the breakfast club in Scarborough. Yeah, so
it's networking amazing.
And building that community right away. How many clients did you work with in your first year? I'm so curious. I don't even know what that number is.
I think it's 10 houses that we bought and sold, I believe. And I'm sorry that I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
But somewhere in and around, because some of them closed the following year. So in 2024, but it's in and around there. So, which is pretty amazing because the market, as everyone had told me when I joined, oh, you joined at the worst time. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, when I joined McLean Hunter, it was the worst time. When I had just started, I was only a month at McLean Hunter. I walked in the door and everyone was given a letter and they took us into a boardroom. And I think this was a pivotal moment for me. I should share this because I walked in and I was just a kid. I was 22 or 23 and they gave us these letters, go sit in the boardroom. And then they came in and they basically said, some of your are going to be retained and for your services and some are not. And I was like, great. I just left, REMAX Elite. That's awesome. So I was like, okay. So I sat down and they gave me a letter and I had been working on a few different magazines and special projects. And they give me this letter that I'm going to be retained. Cause of course I was a kid, probably a quarter of the price than everybody else was. So I went back to my desk and I was told I was going to work on plant newspaper, which I was like, oh, I don't want to work on that because it wasn't a glossy magazine. It was a newspaper. Right. But it turned out to be an incredible opportunity because I got to travel all across Canada and the States and visit so many manufacturing plants. And I learned so much and had a really good time. But that moment when I felt like you could have the rug pulled out at any time, I think that was really pivotal for me to always make sure that I have my own business, that I'm in control. And that no one else is going to have that control over my business, So right. I think that was a pivotal moment for me.
I also think it's like a mindset thing for you because, when you're presented with that kind of situation more than one time, you really bet on yourself. And in order to be able to do that, you really need to be in the right mind space. You need to be surrounded by the right people. To hear that you've joined at the worst time, to some people could be like, it could really make an impact in their lives in the not best way possible. But I think you're able to run with that and be like, all right, well, I'm still here. So I'm going to do what I have to do to service my clients, which is amazing. So it's really cool because your kids are involved in your business, which is quite neat. You don't really get that often. Maybe you would have one of your children, but all your children are somehow contributing, which is really nice. What are your plans for, in the next coming years in terms of your business? Is there a certain type of maybe product that you want to really focus on? Are you doing mostly resale or do you kind of dabble into pre-construction as well, commercial?
Well, I have done both. My first year, I was working with a dentist and we've actually just went to the grand opening. It was hard to find commercial space. Yeah, we were trying to buy a piece of property. I actually climbed a few fences, I'm not going to lie, and went door knocking to try and find a property for my wonderful dentist because I didn't want to lose her. There's no commercial property in this area because they're all holding it right now. So I managed to find her a retail space to lease until we can find something. But it was really very special to be invited to that. And in terms of you said commercial, what was the other thing you said? Sorry, it was
I was just asking, pre-con. What are the plans for the next couple of years?
Yeah. And I have done pre-con as well. But obviously, where the pre-con market is a little bit, there's other opportunities out there, and I think with this market, there's so much opportunity and I don't look at it as a negative. Everyone's talking doom and gloom, but to me, there's opportunity everywhere for, move up buyers. Even if you're a downsizer, my dad used to say, you sell lower, you buy lower. It's all the mindset, right? Actually my husband always says, what is it? Focus on the goal, block out the noise. And that's sort of how we always attack everything. Just don't listen to everybody else. Just do what you need. Just do what needs to get done. In terms of where we're going to take this, obviously Lauren is hopefully going to be finished by the new year, maybe later this year. It depends if they keep adding courses to Humber. It is what it is. But she's already, like, she helps me with the brokers opens. There's a lot of limitations on what she can and cannot do. So I'd like her to focus on helping with the buyers so that I can focus with the sellers, I think is how we're going to try to structure it, is the way we are at this point. And then in terms of the kids, it would really just be Lauren and I. So it's sort of as a tag team, sort of how my friend Heather Griffiths, who was at REMAX Elite with me in the deals department, and now her wonderful daughter, Melissa, who are also awesome Hallmarkers, sort of how they do it as well, so that we can help each other. And maybe I could have a weekend off because 7 days a week, and I'm not going to lie, it is 7 days a week right now. And, and I'm very grateful. I touch wood every day to be, 58 and having far too much fun. And I am a little tired, but it is worth it every day, because it's what you put in. What do you put into a business is what you get back out. And, you have to give right now the highest level of customer service. And that means being available to answer phone calls, because people are nervous. People are scared. They want someone to make them feel better. And I think all my years of experience in sales, but also as a mom, all of these sort of things come into play in terms of, not that sellers are our children, but I mean, it's just, they sometimes need to feel comforted, right? So how do you make them feel better about their decisions and try to sort of, I try to take the stress. I always say I eat stress for breakfast. So that's my, in our house, that's what I say. I eat stress for breakfast. But, I try to take the stress levels from them is sort of the way I approach it. But in terms of growth, I remember Heather Griffiths once said to me, once you get the plane, our old broker, Rod Helcrow, God rest his soul, he was wonderful. He used to say, once you get the plane up and running, just don't let it land. You can let it coast a little bit, but don't let it land. We're ready. We're just getting the plane up and running now. We've really got our systems in place. I think next year, our biggest goals are going to be trying to implement more systems. And I've been listening to Chris Cook, and I'm always learning. I'm trying to implement AI and some other systems in terms of how we can be more efficient.
Right.
But I think right now it's word of mouth for us is what's growing us. I'm getting phone calls now, people seeing my ads in the newspaper, people seeing my jobs. Because I can share with you later what we do, but I have a full ad that shows all our solds and our testimonials. And I think really that's the biggest thing. When I walk in the door now, people already know who I am. My signs are in the neighborhood. So that really is a huge advantage than when the first year was still trying to prove myself.
Yes. And you definitely have. I love that.
Thank you.
So before we wrap up, if you were to give advice to Jeannie 3 years ago, or almost 4 getting into the business, what would that one piece of advice be?
Run. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I think, I was a realist when I started, and I'm still a realist. I make a lot of jokes, but it is something that it's not for someone that I always get people say, oh, I want to be in real estate, but they don't understand what it takes. You have to give everything. And I know that it will get better once I have help, and we're implementing that right now. But I think to get a business I wasn't delusional as to what it was going to take, because this is not the first time I've started a business. I had my printing company for 40 years. So, but I think if I had to tell myself something, I would probably tell myself to be a little bit nicer to myself and to take a little bit better care. I am trying to get back to the gym. That's the only thing that's one of my plans for next year. So that would be the only thing I would say is take a little bit better care of yourself. But at this point, I'm happy, and my family's happy, and I'm so grateful to be at Hallmark, because you guys are amazing, and I appreciate the support, and not just from the leadership, but actually it's amazing. Every time I meet new agents in the community, they're always very supportive and helpful on social media as well, which is great.
I love that. Well, it was really nice to chat with you.
Thank you. Same.
If anyone wants to connect with Jeannie, she is always open to chatting. You can connect with her. Where anyone connect with you? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Instagram, or you can reach out by my phone. Do you want me to share that now, or just
share it right now if you want?
416-526-7946. No, I just kidding. Instagram, Facebook, I'm on everything. So
okay,
yourrealestategenie.com is my website. So
and don't miss her card, because
The Jeannie
You can't
Mobile.
miss it. All right, lovely. Well, it was so nice chatting with you.
Thank you for
And I
having
look
me.
forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Okay,
Bye.
see ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.